All right, hey you guys, and welcome back to Taking Flight with me. My name is Mike Rocket Blackstone. Today we're going to continue our discussion with BFM, and I had a question posted a while back about the energy egg, which we'll discuss today. But first, I'd like to talk about the psychology of what it takes to be a really good fighter pilot. And, really most of what I find to be the key after having done this for like 37 years and nearly 4,000 or 5,000 hours of flying Marchetti SF-260s in this regime is it's about the reps. The more things you do, it's like going to the gym. The more repetitions you get, the better and more comfortable you get, the more this starts to make more sense. You'll start to get a sense of calm, a sense of comfort, and you'll start to feel more confident in being able to accurately predict what's going to happen. Because nine times out of 10, there's not going to be very many things that are going to surprise you if you do this often enough. And that's really why Top Gun was created. It's why Red Flag was created. It's why our military is the best in the world. We practice a lot. These different engagements, the different things that make aviation complicated. What really makes it complicated is not practicing. And we practice a lot, and you'll notice the more you practice, the better you get. So repetition truly is the mother of skill, especially in a world like the fighter pilot world. So when you get down into it, the nitty gritty of this thing, you'll start to find a lot of patterns. And I want to get you to that point. You need to fly enough repetitions to start to realize there aren't a million choices. There's probably a half a dozen of really adequate good ones. And then there's going to be the surprises. But really, surprises are going to benefit you more than hurt you most of the time. You're going to see a surprise that someone just goes the wrong way. They've lost sight. A reversal at the wrong time. You're like, that's a surprise, but thank you very much. A surprise where someone goes up and loses control of their airplane and drops it into a spin and falls right out in front of you. That's a pleasant surprise. Or a loop that doesn't work out right and they just fly right out in front of you. So usually a surprise, if you're playing it safely, will work out to your advantage. Where you notice it's not going well is when someone really knows what they're doing and they are jamming your shots all the time. So that's how you know you've got a really equal match. I would say that in most dogfight situations against a highly skilled fighter pilot of equal capability, this is almost like jiu-jitsu or MMA or any kind of martial arts. Fighting someone of equal skill level, two black belts working against each other, is a much more difficult program than a super senior guy and a super junior guy. So you can see how the training is super important to get the junior guys up to speed, to be more competent and comfortable at the higher levels, to get those reps in so they feel safer and they feel more under control and confident. Flying fighters is about confidence, isn't it? And every fighter pilot wants to consider themselves to be the best fighter pilot in the world. We all know that that's not true, and a lot of our flying outcomes are because of just luck of the draw. I started on the up sun side today, which helped give me an advantage because the sun was going to become an issue for you after 90 degrees of turn. I got to use the sun and you didn't, right? So being able to use those external advantages or disadvantages come into play. Mechanical failure, you're fighting against an airplane that loses power at some point, instant advantage. And to be able to capitalize on that and see it, I mean, these are things that kind of can happen and sometimes do. You would optimize your position and take advantage of that. If it's in a training environment, you'd say, hey, I got a problem, knock it off, join on me, take me back to the base. So those kinds of things could happen. But in a real world, a mechanical failure would be a huge advantage for you to take advantage of. If the Su-27 loses an engine while you're dogfighting, like, thank you, that's going to help me out, right? So stuff like that could become an issue. But other than that, flying fighters it's a psychological warfare. You're trying to get a reaction from your opponent. So I don't think if I'm going to come in and I'm just going to out-G this guy. I think I want to see what this guy's mindset is. Is he feeling confident today? Is he guns blazing on the merge? Like, whoa, man, that's a pretty varsity move. Extremely dangerous. And in a real world situation, that is not out of the question if you've got the legality to do so. You open fire on your opponent on the merge, it lets the other guy know you are serious as a heart attack. So are you going to probably land that bullet into the cockpit? Probably not. But man, it sure gets his attention when the wing roots light up on 500 feet from the merge, and he steps on a little rudder and sends a few bullets your way. That lets him know, let you know how serious he is, or vice versa. So that psychological reaction, are you going to get the other guy to make a mistake because he's afraid? That's certainly a very powerful portion of what a dogfight is about. So what do I do? I mean, how do I buy a reaction? I think showing aggression, smart aggression, gets things moving in that way. So what I mean by that is if you came into a merge, left to left pass, and the other airplane's coming down the left side, if you went with a very aggressive wing flash to try to get your opponent to turn into you early, a panic move, and maybe drop their nose because they're wondering what you're doing, and they let the nose get away from them and go zooming down to the bottom of the area at high speed, that's not a very optimal move, because a nose low high speed dive is extremely predictable. Now you've got this huge arc, this huge trajectory diving down, and this guy's in a high G pullout, might lose sight and be down near the hard deck as he pulls up to recover, looking for you, go, wow, why did he do that? I bought a great reaction, thank you very much, right? So buying a reaction from your opponent, that psychological warfare is so powerful. It's so important to be able to use that to your advantage so that I don't have to work as hard at this. I think the goal is not to get out there and see how many G's I can pull and out G this guy and see what's going on. I want to use things to my advantage. It's like chess in a lot of ways. I'm going to throw out a couple of low grade moves to test your knowledge, and then see if you take the bait and make a wrong move, right? So very much so. That's a lot of what I deploy while I'm dogfighting. I don't show my best move typically early. It's like a pool shark. You go in there and you do a couple of decent moves, but you save your biggest and best move possibly for later after they've tried their best and it didn't work and you've defeated it. Now you can use your bigger move later after you've calibrated what kind of a fighter pilot this other guy is. So that's certainly a tactic. I typically will not sell the farm on the very first move. In other words, I won't come in and put that 6G nose low slice turn on just to see how many G's I can pull, because that move tends to bleed so much energy. In a Marchetti, I can't really do that more than once, maybe twice in a dogfight without losing all my energy. I'm gonna have to level the wings and climb back up and start over. So I don't really like that technique. In the Marchetti, because of the configuration of the engine in the front, high horsepower piston engine in the front, I love a big vertical move. I use the energy egg that someone asked about. Say, hey, why don't you talk about the energy egg? I use the energy egg a lot, and I think of it as the most optimal place to operate the Marchetti is in this oblique world. It's not pure vertical, and it's not horizontal. It's more in this oblique world, which is a climbing left turn, maybe like 45-degree bank, pop up and a zoom to get really slow and let God's gravity push you over the top so you can get 1 extra G of turn performance at the top. So if you're pulling 2 Gs at the top or 1 G, it'll experience a 2nd G pushing you down. So a 1 G loop at the top here, I'll get that push from that 2nd G at the top, which helps me decrease my radius at the top, which is great. The opposite happens at the bottom though. So coming out of this thing, I've got an additional, G pushing me down. I'm going to be 4.5 Gs at the bottom, and I got zero help in terms of the turn performance is not improving at the bottom. I've got a really wide, high G, high rate of turn at the bottom, and a very low G, tight radius at the top. So this is the most optimal place to operate. Piston-powered Marchetti or P-51 Mustang would be in a similar type environment, because we don't have the ability to have an afterburner and sustain high G, either nose, low, or level, and to climb out of that. We really can't do that. So those are some techniques for you that should work. Somebody mentioned to me in the last videos, hey, you know what, why would you burn all your energy in that verse move? I'm not burning energy. So that we talk about energy management, and yes, we are converting speed into altitude, or altitude into speed, right? So if we're up here at 5,000 feet, we're going to convert 140 knots into 160, 170 knots. I'm going to give up some altitude to gain that speed. But when I have the high speed, I'm going to convert that speed back into altitude. So I'm not burning the farm here. It's a very efficient pull of G to get vertical. And once I get going nose up and the trajectory of the airplane is going in the direction I'd like it to go, with the lift vector pointed where I want to fall towards, then I come off the pull and allow the plane to zoom up as much as I can. I've decreased my ground speed to minimize my turn radius, and I'm conserving energy here as I pop up. And then as I come over the top, I can reevaluate, and when I'm ready to accelerate, now I can come off the pull and actually dump the nose, and we call this dumping of the nose, bunting the nose, to take the weight off of the airplane. This is something you can't do in any other vehicle on Earth, that you can simulate that your airplane has more power than it really has to its weight, because we can artificially take the weight off of the airplane. So what I mean by that is our 2,400 pound Marchetti, if we go to a half a G, we go from 2,400 pounds times 0.5, now we're down to 1,200 pounds. Now my 260 horsepower engine is only pulling 1,200 pounds of weight, significantly improving its acceleration and thrust to weight ratio, isn't it? If I go to a quarter G, we're going to go from 1,200 and take another half off of that. It's going to be now down to 600 pounds. This airplane is going to be extremely fast and accelerate back up to maneuvering speed, corner velocity, so we can get back on the G's again relatively quickly. And if we were very slow and really wanted to accelerate things quick, we'd go to even less G, maybe even a 0 G for momentarily dumping the nose down and let that engine pull a plane that's nearly weightless. Really accelerate. So 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, you are back to 170 knots and you are ready to put the G's back on again. So use that technique. Even if you have an F-16, bunting the nose on it, put the G on to get the airplane going where you want to go, keep that lift vector pointed where you want to be, but come off the pull momentarily, maybe even dump the nose a little bit to help it accelerate. 1,001, 1,002, you're back on speed and continue to pull. This way you don't have to tap the burner, okay? If you can get away with coming off the pull and not giving up position with that, that's optimal. In the fighter pilot world, losing sight, lose the fight. Visuals are absolutely critical when you're flying. So keep sight of your opponent. Keep track of what the aspect is on your airplane. Are you looking down at their airplane from a high aspect like this? And this angle is 90 degrees. So if you're shooting at me from where angle that you're coming from, and I put my lift vector, which is coming straight up from the center of my wings, or almost right where my cockpit is, and I put my lift vector straight on your nose, this is a dangerous play, because I'm going to be coming at you like this and pulling my airplane into you. And of course the nose is going to follow, but I'm actually increasing the angle that you're attacking me from to a higher and higher aspect. And at some point we're going to be nose to nose here. And that really pushes up the danger factor. So use this to your advantage to calibrate and judge, do I have a nice safe angle? If you're in this position and you're chasing me straight up the tailpipe, you're doing 150 knots and I'm doing 150 knots, the relative speed between the two airplanes is 0, right? Where you're not closing on me, but I'm not pulling away. You're maintaining your position and it's looking good. But as I start to increase the bank, I start to put a turn on and you keep your nose tracking on me directly, you're now cutting across the circle a little bit, you'll start to close on me. Even if your speed is the same, you now have a closure situation developing. The more I do that to you, I'm beginning to spoil your shot. I'm beginning to give you an overshoot problem. If you keep your nose right on me and I keep increasing that aspect, all of your 150 knots is now coming down on me, and now your closure will go from nothing to 150 knots if I can put that lift vector right on your nose. So you've got a massive amount of increase in closure. Be careful of that. That's something that can really get your attention as you're watching this wingspan rapidly growing in your windscreen. You got to be careful that you don't let that get inside of 500 feet. So Pay attention to that aspect. It's super critical. And understanding the energy state of your opponent. When somebody squats their plane down and puts that lift vector in your face, you need to be leveling your wings and abandoning that attack if you are starting to push inside of 1,000, but more than 500. And if you're going to definitely get inside of 500, you've got to come off, level the wings and pop up. And what I like to do is, this is a really cool move. You'll notice we're in a left-hand turn here. If I want to stop a very high rate of closure, so everything was going pretty good. This guy out in front of me is doing 120 knots. I'm doing 150. And you know, I got 30 knots of closure on this guy. But then he starts to squat the jet down. He pulls into me, right? Now we go from 100, he's doing 120. Now he's down to 100. I got 20 more knots of closure. So now I got a 50 knot closure on this guy. I'm just going to have a massive overshoot here. So what I can do here, if I react quickly enough, is level the wings, pitch up, and roll to the outside of the turn. We call this a lag roll. Super cool, right? So we're in a left-hand turn. The closure got too high for whatever reason. You level the wings as you push into the 500-foot window right here, right? So you're at 500, level the wings, pull up, drop back to maybe 600 or 700 feet, and swoop into their radius of turn now, and slowing down while you leapfrog to the back. Super cool move. So we call this a lag roll. Level the wings, pitch up, and roll to the outside of the turn. Notice how it's a right roll while he's in a left bank. Super awesome. That's a really cool move to practice and learn to do. And a lot of it's just about anticipating and responding, and at some point driving the fight. You want to drive the fight, not be all reactionary all the time. You want to get the other guy to do what you want him to do, so that you could end up in the rear quarter position, in the saddle, in the weapons envelope back here, which is between 500 feet right here on the end of the stick, and 1,000 feet back here, up to about 30 degrees off the tail. Super safe, super under control, a great place to deploy your gun with high levels of accuracy and probability of landing bullets. Closer in you get, less aspect you get, the safer and better the shot. Farther out you get, the higher aspect you get, the tougher the shot and more dangerous and lower probability of landing shots, unless you are really good with the gun, and we call these snapshots. So every now and then you can get a high aspect shot and be able to make it work, right? High aspect pipper out front. If this guy's not pulling into you, we can get some shots off there. It won't be a nice 3 to 5 second trigger mash. It's going to be maybe a second or two, and you'd say, hey, pipper is out front, you know, snapshot, and continue letting the opponent know, hey man, I just had a really cool shot there. Probably wasn't enough to be enough, and it was starting to push that 90-degree mark, so it's starting to push into an illegal shot, and I see you jamming me, so I'm just gonna give you a touche, nice pull. It's not gonna work, but I did get a couple of shots off, and I wasn't enough to down your airplane, and now I may pull up and roll, reverse, back on out here. Even if he changes direction, we can swoop back in and get another shot, right? So you're gonna find yourself out there practicing and practicing and practicing, getting better at manipulating and maneuvering your aircraft, flying it to the edge of what you're capable of and what the plane's capable of. So the airplane is only capable of so many degrees per second of turn rate and so many degrees of angle of attack. Now, some airplanes have an AOA indicator, and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna pull 21 degrees AOA, and that's where the limits are. Well, if you know what yours is, go right to a half a degree below or 0.1 degrees below your max AOA, and you're gonna get awesome turn performance at just prior to the max AOA limit of your wing. If you don't have that, like we don't have that in a Marchetti, and we just have a stall warning, and if you start to hear the stall warning, it's gonna be on because it comes on early. It comes on way early. So if you are hearing the stall warning, that means it's a good sign. You're getting good lift out of the wing, right? But you're gonna need to pull past that stall warning up to where you begin to feel just a little nibble, just a touch of rumble on the airframe, and honor it. Stay out of that buffet. If you stay out of the buffet, you're gonna get optimal turn performance. If you go into the buffet, you're gonna start to separate the airflow over the wings, and the airplane's gonna start to stall. So do not do that. So the airplane can only pull up to a certain amount of angle of attack. When you reach that limit, you need to come off the pull, relax the back pressure, maybe increase your bank, get the nose coming back down, start to accelerate again. And at low speed, you might only be able to get a couple of G's out of this thing, maybe 1.5 G's. If you're 90 knots, that's all you'll get. As you get to 120, maybe 2.5 G's. At 150, 160, maybe 3.5 G's. 160 plus, 4.5 to 5 G's, okay? 160 plus, you could pull more G's than what the plane's certified for, so or rated to do. You could hurt the airplane. So be gentle as you get going fast. Do not think that going fast will give you just more G capability and you can make better turns, because that's not true. You're going to end up out there making the biggest arcing turn, even if you're at 4 G's or 5 G's at 190 knots. Your circle is very predictable, huge arc, and a tremendous waste of energy and altitude, and it's just not going to work out for you. So don't do that. That's a predictable, crazy move. Now, being unpredictable, if they fly by the seat of your pants, completely unpredictable. You know, being unpredictable is good. Being aggressive mentally is good. Being smooth on the controls is really good. And you want to be a viable, worthy opponent. You don't want to be reckless. So just being out there flailing around is not going to be good. So I wouldn't say the guy that's the most violent on the controls and most dangerous is a good fighter pilot, because everybody's just scared to be around you. That's not good. But there are certain moves that are appropriate when you are trying to increase your time of survival. And you're dogfighting, it's about time, isn't it? So, you know, if you go into a dogfight and you can swoop up and take a shot within 25 seconds and get a good kill, fantastic, right? If this thing starts to last longer than 45 seconds to a minute and a half, and you're starting to find yourself out there just circling around each other, and then, you know, then you get yourself into this crazy long, slow, horizontal scissors, you know, it's going on too long. This thing should have died and happened much sooner than that. So if you find yourself still neutral at the hard deck, everybody's at 90 knots and overheating their motors, and you're 300 feet, 100 feet above the hard deck, call it off. Yeah, that's enough, okay? Well done, touche. We'll call this one even, because things start to get really dangerous down near the lower levels, and low, you know, horizontal scissors is just not that safe. So if you're the guy out in front, call it what it is. You're dead. There's no way you're going to go from out the front to out the back. If you're out both at the hard deck, there's no way out at this point. So with that in mind, being reckless, not good. So let's say you're up at altitude and you notice your opponent's coming on your 6 and he's about ready to get you. In World War II, a very aggressive break turn in, followed by a pull and a snap roll to a huge split S. I've heard stories of that. That's a pretty awesome move. But what you've done is probably over-G'd the aircraft, okay? Snapping the stick back at 150 knots and stepping on a rudder, you could damage the airplane. So P-51 Mustang, I'm not sure it's really a snap roll type airplane, but if you went full aft on the stick and stepped on the right rudder with the throttle wide open, you might break something. So, but if you're gonna get shot down, in real life, that might be a better option than bullets coming through your cockpit. So right as you see this guy about to open fire on you, an aggressive pull in, a hard reversal, and a split S, if there's room to do it. Now, if you're 300 feet above the hard deck, obviously that's not going to work, but a huge aggressive pull to the opposite direction and a snap roll could save you for a little while, to buy you a few more seconds and hope that your wingman has a chance to shoot down your opponent. That's really what it's about. You know, it's a ruthless game. So at the end of the day, this game there's not great outcomes for the guy who's losing. And once you're the guy out front, it means you've lost sight. You allowed your energy state to get into a deficit that you could not recover from. And you've bled everything down now. Now you're out of altitude, you're out of airspeed, and there's not very many more plays left on the board for you. So that's what it is. The difference between the guy in the front and the guy in the back may only have been a few percent difference in energy, total energy state. That's it. 1 or 2, 3%, maybe 5 on the outside, but it's never the guy in the back's got 50% more energy than the guy in the front. There's been a heavy energy loss to get to this point, and the guy out front is just a little more energy deficient than the guy in the back. And that really is the dynamic of it. That's really what's happened. So That's what I have for you today. Hopefully we talked about the energy egg, we talked about defensive maneuvering, we talked about psychology, we talked about the G's, and hopefully this has been a useful lesson for you. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be happy to make more videos over time. I'm getting into a better spot in my life now where I can dedicate more time to sharing my knowledge with the community. And hopefully I get a chance to do it again for you guys real soon. Leave your names and any comments down below. Subscribe and follow, and we will see you in the next episode.